As a teenager, Asani Diop's life was turned upside down when his father died after being accused of a crime he claims he never committed. 25 years later, Asani is inspired by his hero, Arsène Lupin, to avenge his father, so he decides to steal a famous necklace from the Louvre Museum. That's why today on the Summarizer, Lupin. In 1995 lived a 14-year-old guy named Asani. His father Babacar worked for the Pellegrinis, a rich family of Paris who had in their possession a necklace of the Queen of France, Marie Antoinette. Days later, the necklace had been stolen, and Pellegrini blamed Asani's father, and because no one else had access to the house, he became the main suspect. Although Babacar claimed to be innocent, his fingerprints were found on the safe, so he was sent to jail. Asani visited the jail to see his father, but to his surprise, he had hanged himself. However, Babacar's last gift to his son was the novel of a great thief, a loner with multiple identities known as the Master of Disguise, Arsène Lupin, gentleman burglar. 25 years later, Asani calls himself Louis Pernena. He works as a cleaner in a Louvre museum where in a week's time, the necklace of Queen Marie Antoinette will be auctioned. After work, he goes to the apartment of some people to whom he owes money. He tells them he has no money, and after, they almost throw him out of the building. He comes up with an idea to pay them back, steal Marie Antoinette's necklace. The plan was as follows. On the one hand, our character would win the bid for the necklace at the auction, and while the rest of the team should enter the museum, disable the cameras, steal a suit from the security men, and then escape with the necklace in a discreet car. The day of the auction arrives, and the protagonist, who now pretends to be a multi-millionaire named Paul Sermine, enters the Louvre and proceeds to carry out the plan. He makes the highest bid and buys the necklace of Marie Antoinette for $60 million. Meanwhile, the rest of the team does everything wrong. It was to be expected from Kevin, a man on steroids who can hardly move, Vincent, a man who does not hesitate to show his unique neck tattoo, and Rudy, a person who not only uses a spray that had not worked minutes before to put some guards to sleep, but also he carries it empty. If that's not enough, they steal the necklace from Asani, escape in a not very discreet car, and end up crashing and being arrested by the police, who recover the necklace. After that, the police ask Asani some questions and let him go, telling him they will set the payment of the auction for another day. But Asani Diop didn't believe that his useless team could steal the necklace either. To understand what happened, let's go back 2 weeks ago, when Asani saw on TV that the Queen's necklace was found and was going to be auctioned. So, acting as Arsène Lupin himself, the character in the book that his father had given him, he got the job of cleaning service at the museum, then went to these guys to ask them for money, and then not to pay back to offer them the theft. At the same time, he also went to see his friend Benjamin, who made him a replica of the necklace, so when Kevin knocked him down, Asani hid the real necklace in the garbage can and threw the fake one on the floor. Finally, he returns to the museum as Louis, and while cleaning up the crime scene, he grabs the necklace, puts it in the trash, and leaves the museum. The next day, the police discover that the necklace was a fake. And yes, I'm sure you're wondering, what if Asani was pushed away from the garbage can? How did it take police so long to figure out that the necklace was a fake? Or how did they let cleanup crews into the crime scene? Well, nobody knows. After all this, Asani goes to see his son Raoul, who lives with Claire, his ex-girlfriend. Asani and Raoul go for a walk, and he gives him the Lupin book that his father had given to him. Then he goes to see Benjamin so he can analyze the necklace. After a few hours, and not a day like the police, he discovered that the necklace was never disarmed and scattered around the world as the Pellegrini family had said. So the story that the necklace was stolen may not be true, and that perhaps it was always with the Pellegrinis. So he asked Benjamin to take the diamonds from the necklace. Later in a hotel, Juliet, the Pellegrini's daughter, receives an envelope with one of the diamonds and an address. He goes to meet Juliet, who tells him that the necklace was not disassembled and that they created the story. The necklace was found 5 years ago in South Africa. He also tells him that Babacar pleaded guilty and even signed a confession. So now, he decides to go looking for that confession letter, but not before escaping from the police again, now wearing a delivery man's disguise. Asani reads the letter his father left before he committed suicide, but there are two misspelled words, libraries and commit. He did some research, and at the time in the prison there was a guy named Commit who worked in the library. So Asani goes to the prison. He goes to visit a prisoner pretending to be his cousin, exchanges handcuffs, and in this simple way switches places with the prisoner. There, he realizes that Commit is sick and cannot receive visitors, so he gets himself stabbed by other prisoners only to end up in the prison infirmary to see Commit. There, Commit tells Asani that once his father told him to keep a book and give it to anyone who asks for him, that all the answers were there. He finds the book, and it has a few underlined words that form a hidden message.
Am innocent, trapped by Pellegrini.
Now, it's time to escape from prison, so Asani takes some pills and with a basketball net pretends to commit suicide and then wakes up in the ambulance and finally escapes. Having read his father's hidden message, he went to Anne Pellegrini to ask her why she framed his father. She told him that she made him sign the confession even though she knew he was innocent, since supposedly if he signed the confession, they would reduce his sentence. But the judge was harsh and the confession convicted him. Finally, she said she did all this on the recommendation of the inspector handling the case, Inspector Dumont. Asani takes Dumont out of the meeting and takes him down to the basement. He knocks him out, takes him out in a trunk, and puts him in a van. Upon waking up, the detective was tied up. Asani wanted to know everything about his father's case. The detective said he was convinced that his father had been guilty. Asani got angry and accidentally revealed his identity.
Tell me why you framed my dad!
After that, Dumont swears to him that he will not talk and Asani leaves. The police manage to locate Dumont's phone, but when they arrive, inside the box was a clown and the phone. Asani had never left the building. Speaking of the police, there are three characters: the chief, who is stupid, a woman who does nothing, and a young man named Guidera, who is a fan of Lupin and who begins to understand everything and to relate everything to this book, but they don't give him a chance, and then they separate him from this case, because otherwise, this series would end very quickly. Later, Asani tapped Dumont's phone and realized that Dumont had hidden something from him. In a flashback, the film shows us that Dumont really doubted Asani's father's guilt, but was threatened by Mr. Pellegrini. So, the next day, Asani visited him in a cafe, and after threatening him, Dumont told Asani that if he wanted to take down Pellegrini, he should talk to a journalist named Fabienne. So, after visiting Juliette, Comet, Anne, and Dumont, he had to find one more person. Fabienne, who also hates Pellegrini, proposes him to steal a video that is in a section in the newspaper where she used to work. So they do it. The video was about 10 years ago when Pellegrini has sold weapons to criminals who had attacked the French embassy in Kuala Lumpur in 1996. With a frame, they made a tweet threatening to release the entire video. Humbert Pellegrini came out to deny everything, and here Fabienne asked him a very dangerous question and then left. Noticing her presence, one of Pellegrini's men began to follow her, although she soon lost him. Instead of releasing the video on Twitter, which would be the obvious thing to do, they had the brilliant idea to do it on television on a live show. Dressed in a hardly credible old man costume, he visited the TV show where he explained what the video was about. However, when presenting it, the TV network had edited it. It was all a big trap, but again, Asani managed to escape security. At that moment, someone knocked on Fabienne's door. It was the man who had followed her. He wanted to know where Asani lived, however, she did not tell him. Then Asani arrived at Fabienne's house to find that his friend had died. On his son's birthday, he wanted to spend the day with him and his ex, so they decided to take a train trip. On the train was Pellegrini's man who was following him. Asani sent a message to the detective saying he wanted to talk and that he would meet him at the station when he got off the train. But he lied about his clothing, and the police ended up catching the bad guy. As they arrived, it was a Lupin celebration, and Raoul asked permission to see the cliff from the beach. While this was going on, Dumont, who knew the man arrested, requested to release him. He was not the suspect. He had been framed by putting a gemstone in his coat, so the man left the local police station. Returning to Claire and Asani, they noticed that Raoul was missing and began to desperately search for him. It seemed that he had disappeared, although what was really happening was that the guy had kidnapped him when he left the police station. Asani did not know what to do when suddenly Guidera appeared and knew that he was Lupin. So that was the end of the first season of Lupin. Comment what you guys think and what you'd like me to summarize next. See you later.
Okay. Bye.